I stayed in this village for a few days last summer. It wasn't anything special, just some quiet time away from the city. My buddy recommended the place, a small village about 3 hours away, where people don't bother you. It sounded perfect to me. The house I rented was nothing fancy, just a one-story house with a big garden out front. The nearest neighbor's house was a bit far, maybe a 5-minute walk. It was peaceful, and I liked that. It gave me space to breathe. The village itself felt calm. Everything moved slower, and you could actually hear the wind. Anyway, the first 2 days were uneventful. I mostly just walked around the village, took naps, and enjoyed not being on my phone. The only real thing I noticed was this old man who lived across the road from me. He seemed to always be outside, sitting on a bench in his yard, just sitting there watching everything. I didn't think much of it. Villages are filled with old folks, right? On the third day, I decided to take a walk around sunset. The sky was turning pink and orange, and it looked really beautiful. I wandered off the main road and found this path that led through the woods behind the village. The path was narrow, but well-worn, like people used it regularly. I thought it would be a good way to clear my head. After walking for a while, I noticed the air was getting cooler. The trees were thicker here, and the sounds of the village were fading away. I kept going though, I don't know why, but something about being alone in those woods felt right. That's when I saw her. At first it didn't register. I thought it was just a trick of the light. But then I saw her again. A woman standing about 50 feet off the path, just barely visible between the trees. She wasn't moving. She was just standing there, looking straight at me. My heart jumped, but I tried to act normal. Maybe she was just picking berries or something, right? People do that in villages. I kept walking, but I glanced back after a few seconds. She was still there, not moving, not doing anything, just watching. I started to feel uneasy. I mean, what are the chances that a random woman is just standing in the woods, staring at me? I picked up my pace and kept walking, trying to ignore the chill creeping up my spine. About 10 minutes later, I turned around again. This time, she was gone. I felt a wave of relief, thinking maybe I had overreacted. I kept walking, telling myself it was nothing. But then I saw her again, standing by the path further ahead. Closer now. I stopped in my tracks. There was no way she could have gotten ahead of me. My brain tried to make sense of it, but nothing added up. She was standing in the exact same position as before, still staring at me, her face blank. At that moment, I didn't care to find out what was going on. I turned around and started walking back the way I came, faster this time. I kept my eyes on the path, trying not to look to my sides, but I could feel her. You know that feeling you get when you know someone's looking at you? I felt that, like she was right behind me. I didn't look back. I just kept walking, my legs shaking now. When I finally made it back to the village, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I didn't see her anymore. Everything seemed normal again, but I couldn't shake that feeling. That stare. The next morning, I packed up to leave. I wasn't going to stick around to figure out what was going on. As I was loading my bags into the car, I glanced across the road. The old man was sitting there on his bench just like before. Only this time he was smiling at me, as if he knew something. I got in the car and drove away, but that smile and her stare have stayed with me ever since. I used to drive through this small village almost every weekend. It was the quickest route to my cousin's place in the next town over. The village wasn't anything special, just a couple of houses, an old gas station, and a church. It was the kind of place where you drive through and don't even bother to stop unless you absolutely need to. A few months ago, though, I got a flat tire while passing through, so I had no choice but to pull over. I was right in front of that gas station, so I figured I'd ask for some help. When I went inside, it felt off immediately. The store was dark and there wasn't anyone behind the counter. The shelves looked like they hadn't been restocked in months. There was this weird smell too, like something rotten. I stood there for a while, calling out, "Hello? Anybody here?" After a few minutes, this old woman came out from a back room. She looked frail, like she shouldn't have been working there. She didn't smile, didn't say anything at first, just stared at me like I was some kind of nuisance. "I got a flat," I explained. "Do you know anyone around here who can help?" She just nodded, not saying a word, and motioned for me to follow her outside. We walked around the building where I thought she'd have some tools or a tire pump. Instead, she led me to this old man who was sitting on a wooden chair under a tree. He didn't look at me, just kept carving something into a piece of wood. "He'll help you," she finally said. Her voice was scratchy, like she hadn't spoken in years. The old man didn't even acknowledge that we were standing there. He just kept carving, slow and steady, with his eyes locked on that piece of wood. Excuse me?" I asked, feeling kind of awkward. "Do you have anything to fix my tire?" The old man stopped carving and finally looked up at me. His eyes were cold, empty almost. He didn't say anything, just stood up and walked towards my car. I followed him, trying to make small talk, but he didn't respond to any of it. He just knelt down, looked at the flat tire, and without a word, started working on it. I was glad to have someone help, but something about the whole situation felt wrong. While he worked, I looked around. The village felt deserted. No cars driving by, no people walking around, just dead quiet. The only thing I could hear was the sound of the wind and the occasional scrape of the old man's tools. After what felt like forever, he stood up, wiped his hands on his pants, and just walked away. He didn't ask for money, didn't say a single word. He just left, heading back to his spot under the tree. I didn't stick around to ask questions. I got in my car, ready to leave, when I glanced in the rearview mirror. The old woman was standing in the doorway of the gas station, staring at me. She wasn't smiling, but her eyes, they were sharp, almost like she was waiting for something. I sped off, feeling uneasy, but relieved to be out of there. About a week later, I was talking to my cousin about the whole thing. When I mentioned the village and the old man at the gas station, he went quiet. "You said you stopped at the gas station?" he asked, looking kind of freaked out. "Yeah, why?" He shook his head. "That place has been shut down for years. The owners, an old couple, they disappeared a long time ago. No one knows what happened to them, but nobody's lived there since." I laughed it off at first, thinking maybe he was messing with me. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. The empty shelves, the weird smell, how the village seemed abandoned. I haven't driven through that village since, and honestly, I don't plan to. But here's the thing that still gets to me. That old man. Whatever he was carving that day, he left it on my front porch 2 days later. It was a small wooden figure, shaped exactly like me, standing next to my car.